I contemplated pouring a couple of fingers of Jefferson tonight. We talked about what to call our audience, but I asked ChatGPT and it said fellow travelers, warriors, brothers. I like brothers. Rebels, outsiders, lost boys, seekers, explorers. How about just tribe?
I like tribe.
Like, hello.
I like tribe. Here's a tribe. Yeah.
Right. All right, guys, should we get this show on the road here?
Let's do it. We just
All right, well. Oh, yeah, what?
I was going to say, we play the pretend music in our heads. In 3, 2.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Reclaiming Man podcast. I am your host, Scott Sylvie, and with me, as always, Preston, the Southern Caduck Radomski, and Michael, the Mastermind Beckwith. How are we doing today, fellows?
Better than the last time.
Better than the last time.
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm going to kick us off with something a little spicy here.
Do it.
The vast majority of everyone else, the situation that they find themselves in their life, they are solely responsible for. It is the aggregate of all of the decisions that they've made over the course of the last week, year, and lifetime that have led them to this point. Hot take, boys. Accountability is a trait that's lacking in society. A lot of it is driven by society. There's always a villain. There's always someone else to blame. We have this tribalism, and not in a good way. You think of identity politics, and it's our tribe versus your tribe, and there's no middle ground. There's no compromise. There's no tolerance anymore. And so everyone's always pointing a finger at everybody else. And one of the things I learned, actually from my mother-in-law, thank you, Janet, was that if you find yourself pointing your finger out at everyone else, it's probably a good time to turn that finger around and take a look at yourself. And when it comes to people's situations in life, it's very easy and it's very convenient to talk about the bad luck or the things that didn't turn out my way, or the time that I had it and I lost it, or it was snatched from me, or I didn't get the promotion because so-and-so, or I didn't get into this school, or whatever. And the reality is that's true. Bad things can happen. You can be unlucky. Some other people will be more fortunate than you at times. I don't remember which, maybe it was Benjamin Franklin, some long dead guy that said, the harder I work, the more luck I seem to find. And kind of analogous to that is that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And we'll talk about the law of attraction at some point as well. But when you're out there not willing to settle for second best, you may run into obstacles. You may run into roadblocks that prevent you from achieving what you want on the timeline you want. And when you get knocked down, it's a matter of, are you going to get back up or not? And I know that's a kind of a cliche statement, but there's a lot of strong truths in cliches. And sometimes the cliches get so overused that they deflect from the original meaning. But in that context, it's when things are rough, when things aren't going your way, it's how do you respond? How do you react? And if you've just been operating on motivation and a near-term goal that you feel you can reach out and touch, and then you don't actually get there, what do you fall back on? Do you fall back on, woe is me? Do you fall back and say, shoulda, woulda, coulda? Or do you fall back on your disciplines and habits that say, all right, that sucked, but now I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to get after it. And it's that tenacity and that grit. If you think of the Rocky movies, first of all, he gets knocked down, but we get that montage of jogging with the sweater on and working out hard. And that's 2 or 3 minutes. But the reality is, in the overall picture of Rocky, that's actually 95% or 99% is all the hard work that you have to put in when you don't want to. So I'm getting deep into the weeds of what that meant, and maybe we'll slow down here and unpack it a bit. But the reason that I circle back to the original point of people are where they think they deserve. And a lot of that is just a result of the actions and the habits and the disciplines that they've had, or the lack thereof, over the course of the last 6, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever.
Lifetime.
Yeah, society has long been a proponent of looking to the circumstances as the cause for why we are where we are. And it's habitually in our mind where that starts. And so it's a great place to start the conversation, because a lot of times we think of habits as things that we do, but we also need to think of habits from the perspective of what we're thinking. In fact,
What we do is a byproduct.
exactly. And if we start to take a look at the thoughts we habitually have on a daily basis, it leads us to some interesting insights about our lives, about what we're actually causing versus what's happening to us. And shifting our mindsets like that has been something that's been, you guys would all agree, something that's been pretty helpful for us over these past few months.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, Preston, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys could elaborate on the concept of a habit or the thought of the habit versus doing the habit. That sounded interesting to me, but I don't know if I totally grasp what you're putting down. I feel like, oh, I like that, but educate me more.
Yeah. So we've all been reading several books together, and many people are familiar with books about habits, and a lot of people talk about routines as in things that they do, whether it's in the morning routine or it's in their evening routine or it's their all day routine. It's always things that we're doing. And it's important for us to get back to what is the precursor to action. It's always thought. And if we look at what we're thinking about as habitual, and how most of our thoughts on a daily basis are subconscious things that we're not even aware that we're thinking, it really takes us down an interesting path of, okay, what are my habitual thoughts, and how strong of a correlation is there between my habitual thoughts and what I perceive as what's happening to me? Scott got at it a bit earlier when he was talking about wherever we have brought ourselves in life effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And by our thoughts, and as a result of those thoughts, by our actions that come from those thoughts, eventually we have these recurring patterns of thoughts and actions that become habitual, and we no longer think about them. So that's a big piece of what we're hoping to talk about today, the types of habits that we have that are serving us, that are beneficial to us, and the types of thoughts that we have that are detracting from our goals and detracting from the types of people that we want to be, and what our conversations have been around those things.
The one modification I might make to that is,
Yeah.
we are where we are as a result of where we believe we deserve to be.
Okay. Yeah.
And the actions that we take are shaped by the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and the potential that we believe we have. And so our thoughts are really the driving force behind the behavior. And if we want to make changes in our lives, we want to get in shape or whatever, you have to be able to acknowledge that you can change them, right? And a lot of us get stuck into these ruts where we don't think that we're capable of losing those 20 pounds or of getting that promotion or whatever. But ultimately, the problem is we get stuck in that rut where we don't realize or have this understanding that our thoughts actually influence our actions. And if you want to have better actions, to your point, Michael, you need to start having better thoughts.
Yeah. So we can talk a little bit about some of the habits that we're starting to form to help us change our thoughts, to help us change how we perceive the world, and how that's led to physical actions, things that we're doing as habits as well. But one of the habits all of us have really started to adopt is taking more time intentionally to consume content that's beneficial, enriching, and theoretically life-changing, whether that's in the form of a book or a podcast. We all have been, with an increased level of focus, trying to consume things that are going to help us unlock a bit of something that accelerates us realizing more progress towards any sort of goal that we have in life.
One of the quotes we had in episode 1 ended, show people the real thing that they've been looking for, the thing that they've tried to buy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I experienced individually And through some conversations with some folks, including the two of you, many people feel this way as well, especially when you're struggling, when you're down, when you're hurting, when you're trying to figure out even just how to get out of that rut. It can be a very demoralizing sensation or feeling to be in that situation. So we're all looking for the silver bullet. What is the magic pill I can take that will fix things? The reality is there isn't a magic pill. And the people that tell you that there is, they're probably trying to sell you a book about their magic pill.
Yep.
Because there's a very simple truth. It doesn't mean it's easy. There's a very important distinction between it being simple but not easy. But the simple truth is that if you want to produce result, it's not something that you're going to do today. It's not a change that's going to be reflected immediately. I actually heard a really great analogy for this today, speaking of seeking out fulfilling content. There was a guy that said, you go to the gym, you work out today. You come home, you look in the mirror. No results. You go back tomorrow, go to the gym, you work out. You work out hard, you sweat. Come home, you look in the mirror. There's no result. And so you quit. I don't know exactly when those results start showing up, but it's not about days 1 and 2. It's about doing it every day. You can't go to the gym for 40 straight hours and come home ripped. You go to the gym for 20 minutes for 120 days, and you're going to be in shape. It's the same thing with habits. You're not going to see the results right away. It has to be a daily commitment to small improvements. We talk about it a lot, that it's a 1% game. If you get 1% better every day, those gains will compound over time. And to quote again from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. You just make these micro adjustments on a daily basis, and that's what adds up over time to significant change in your life. If you think of the stock market, and they say you double your money every 7 years. If you start out with $1,000 today and you double your money in 7 years, that's $2,000. It's not the first double that's the most profound. It's when you're 60 and you've got 5 million and it doubles to 10 in the next 7 years. Yeah. So the growth, the changes are always biggest on the back end of change or on the back end of compounding.
Yeah. So thinking back to the last episode with reclaiming friendship, we were talking about building deep and meaningful relationships and how we've been able to accelerate that. A big piece of it is habit. We have on a daily basis committed to talking to each other. And it seems so simple, but it is profound that you can spend a relatively small amount of time consistently over even 2 months, 3 months, and how quickly that adds up. And if you multiply that over the 10 years that we're committed to bringing these podcasts to you, or even longer, who knows?
Yeah.
Just it's something that we all are becoming increasingly passionate about, but the habit of communication. And how important is that to the friendship?
I mean, it's vital. It's everything. I was talking to my dad on the way home from work today. And I feel like we just always talk about the same things, like about the weather and stuff. As we get older and we don't see each other, it's just habit. What we talk about, a few things we talked about that are coming up in my life today that are kind of new things. So it was nice, but it's almost, I don't know, the way when the three of us talk and there's always just, maybe it's because there's 3 versus 2 and maybe it's just, you guys are more interested than my dad. I don't know, but I love hanging out with him in person, but just the phone calls are just.
Here's to hoping he's not a subscriber.
If he is, I love him. I'll take away from that. It's just fine. We sometimes have not the
Well, and it's not to say that you couldn't change that conversation with your dad, or I couldn't change the conversation with my brother, but you subconsciously said, we talk about these things, the weather, but yeah, exactly. We subconsciously start conversations the same way. Can't tell you how many of the hundreds of meetings that I've had over the past several years have started with us talking about the weather. And it's not because we care about the weather. It's because
safe, easy.
Because habitually we've done it.
Yeah.
And it's perceived as a way to break the ice or to start a conversation. Instead of asking a question that's meaningful, hey, what was the best thing about this past week for you? Or what was the most meaningful experience that you've had, or what was something that was really hard for you this week? Or give me an example of something that you learned. I'm not going to perhaps speak in those sort of like interview questions, but if you start to ask those types of questions in a relationship consistently, again, and those become the habit,
Yeah.
all of a sudden there is a different level of depth. And that's what we've been doing these past few months. And so those are the types of habits that compound for us.
And the habit of communication is certainly important. And I know we did talk about this a bit last time. So plug episode 1. This habit of communication and how we do talk frequently in ways that are convenient for our individual lives using an app called Marco Polo. But maybe just as importantly is all the other habits that we undertake, whether it's my Reclaiming Man journal, which we all have. It's reading, it's consuming content, as Michael said. It's cold plunging, it's working out. What is so interesting about those habits that we have collectively started to do with one another is in those communications, we're also holding each other accountable. And if you want to have amazing self-confidence, you have to keep the promises that you make to yourself. And if the promises you make are, this is my morning routine, and I'm going to do this morning routine, and here's my evening routine, and you keep those promises to yourself, you're going to have self-confidence. But let me tell you something. When you're in a group of friends and you've all made commitments and promises, mostly to ourselves, but in front of one another, and you keep those promises, what it does is it produces mutual respect. And it creates a level of understanding as you're going through a period of growth. If you're doing that by yourself and you're self-aware of the growth, it can be a very powerful experience for yourself. If you're going through that same period of growth with people you care about in your life, and you get to see your own growth in their eyes, and you get to also observe their growth through your own, it creates a whole different level of connection with other people.
Yeah. And it feels like you're caught in the momentum of it. You feel somebody else's progress, and it feels like you're a part of that. And you are, because even the accountability piece becomes a habit of asking, hey, how did the workout go that we're doing? Or, hey, we haven't asked each other as much about our diets as perhaps we should be. I know it's an equally important part of our health, but we have been asking each other about what we're reading and what types of progress that we're making on some of these goals.
And working out, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so from Atomic Habits, one of the quotes that I liked was, success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformations. And that's really what broadly applies to relationships personally and professionally. It applies to our health. It applies to our wealth. It applies to our impact on the world. And in each of those areas, the three of us have said, as we're on this journey together, let's have some pretty big dreams, bold ambitions for what we want to accomplish in life, and start making progress for those, and then change our perception of those habits and those behaviors to something where we're not waiting until we have achieved some state in order to feel rewarded or fulfilled or happy. It's by doing those things progressively and continuously, we're changing our mindset about it and saying that we're really finding enjoyment and fulfillment in doing this. And I remember, Scott, you were just talking earlier today how you finished a workout that was hard and how good it felt. It's different when you're looking at something that most people consider a chore and you look at it as a reward. So that's a big piece of habits too, is changing your mind about them. And yes, they can become rigid, automatic, but at the same time, they're also still choices. And especially when it comes to the hard choices of eating less or doing the workout when you're tired, or not writing in your journal because you haven't planned your day as well and you don't have time, or whatever those excuses that we all have, becomes equally a combination of things that are easy not to do, as well as things that are easy to do.
But it's easy to show up when it's easy.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling strong and fit and energetic and it's warm out, I'm going to walk out to my gym, which is in my shop outside. and my dumbbell isn't going to be 23 degrees because it's freezing. When it's 70 out, the sun's shining, I've got plenty of time in my day. I'm not stressed, anything. It's easy to show up when it's easy. But it's whether or not you're going to show up when it's hard. That's what defines whether or not you have grit. Will you show up when you don't want to? Most people won't.
Yeah. Another book that I, on my third or fourth time reading through it at this point, a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. He has a lot of similarities to Atomic Habits, and he talks about looking at habits more from the lens of time in the long term and simple daily disciplines, little productive actions that are repeated consistently over time. They add up to the difference between failure and success.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy for us to think about habits as the things that we do every day versus the things that we don't do every day. And that's where The Slight Edge illustrated differently about how things compound negatively as well. So
Sure.
if we don't work out for only 3 to 5 days, we will lose a lot of the momentum. Our muscles will start to atrophy within a week of not moving, things like that.
I think I've read that you have to work out consistently for 6 weeks. I think these are the right numbers. You have to work out consistently for 6 weeks to get into your body's current peak physical form. But if you miss 1 week, you lose all that progress.
Exactly. So
it makes sense. When I go on vacation at FedEx, I'll be gone for 1 week. And like when I go back that next Monday, it's like work is hard again. And I've only been gone a week. I'm not
exactly
like
it.
a gladiator at work, but you know, it's like you read that quote and I was like, wow, yeah, that's
I don't know. I picked up
200 push-ups a day.
The FedEx 2022 calendar, and you look like a gladiator to me, dude.
Stop it. I did 350 today.
350 push-ups today?
Yep.
Well, you probably should drop down and give us 50 to make it an even 400 right now, shouldn't you?
I could. You guys talk amongst yourself. That's not a bad idea.
Right on. Love it.
Perfect example of a good habit.
Yeah. And hopefully somebody watching will count just to make sure. No, he's honest. But one of the things you were talking about there is the idea of if you set a goal, and we do have big goals and big dreams, both collectively and individually. And if you have a goal for accomplishing something big, like you can't just make the decision today that you're going to be an MMA world champion and then just have it happen, right? Was that a full 50? Was that a full 50?
That was full 50.
My man, 400. Found it.
Yeah, that was really good. Honestly, as far as motivation, those are the types of things, though, where usually we'll get that in a polo and be like, oh,
Yeah.
300 push-ups, 400 push-ups a day. And it's like, I better do something because,
Right.
you know, it is this internal competition. Yes, it's me against me, Preston against Preston, you against you, Scott. But there is this internal sense of desire for us all to continue leveling up. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big piece of these habits, finding the ones in your life that are detracting and taking you away from your goals. And another quote from The Slight Edge, everything you do and don't do counts. You're either moving towards your goals or away from them. There's no neutral ground. Very similar to that last quote. But I used to believe there was neutral ground between the three of us, between everyone that's listening. I used to be like, okay, I can maintain. But maintaining is you have to put energy even to maintain. And, and even then, it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere. And if it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere, you're not.
Yeah.
And so I guess one of the habits that I wanted to talk about where it gets to the point where a habit can become something that's an addiction and it can become something that becomes destructive. I'm going to talk about running, which by most people's perception, like, oh, that's a healthy habit. But I had a habit of just running faster every mile called negative split. So just habitually running faster every mile I was running, which is called negative split. So every mile I just run a little bit faster. And I started in high school running 800. So I really had no business running 5, 7, 10 miles, but I decided I was going to train for a half marathon. So I did a couple of years ago. And then it started this habit of running longer distances, but I'd still run faster and faster. Never really was in the habit of lifting as much. I wasn't building up muscular strength to support that. And so as a result, I ended up injuring myself. So the habit of running so much day after day eventually caused an injury. And so I realized it's a good habit to stay active every day. But if you don't do it in a way that protects your body and do it a little bit more holistically and not so overly focused on just one part of it, it's going to cause imbalance. And so that's a really big piece of habits. I've recognized the only way that I can change my future is to start taking these small steps, what I consider small steps, and doing it on a daily basis.
That kind of goes back to the Rocky montage.
Yeah.
Somebody might see you 6 months ago and see you today and be like, holy shit, this dude has changed drastically.
Mhm.
Okay. But all they see are the highlights. They don't see the little incremental shifts that it took where you identified something that was maybe a negative in your life and started working to correct that. And then in parallel to that, you were also trying to compound some positive habits. And so over the course of many months, again, going back to when you're 60 and it doubles the last time, that's $5 million. That's a lot more than the 1,000. It's the same idea that if people are only seeing the highlights, they're only seeing when those doubles occur. They're not seeing all the work that Rocky put in to get to that point, or that you put in to get to that point. It's a process. The point is not to change every habit in your life. The point is to become aware of the importance of your thoughts and how they drive the habits that can be both good and bad for you. And the goal is to minimize the negative habits and maximize the positive habits.
Yeah.
To help propel you forward. And it's not 20% a day. It's again, 1% a day. If you think about the difference between did I move forward today or did I take a step backwards today is 2%. If you did 1% better, you did 1% worse. But the reality with compounding is if you do 1% better every day for a year, that's not 365% because it compounds. It turns out to be almost 3,700% or 37 times growth. On the flip side, if you do 1% negative a day, you're at zero or close enough to zero that it's zero. I find it very interesting in a positive and encouraging way that as somebody who felt like I had a lot of room to grow and a lot of habits to change, I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I would say now. My identity, the habits, my daily activities, my disciplines, my routines, the ability to make drastic change in your life in terms of outcome, meaning the outcome of your life is going to change drastically by only having to change the inputs or your daily activities by a very small amount. To me, that's really profound. It's much more encouraging that the magic pill, the secret sauce, is that you have to make small daily changes in your life to affect massive positive change in your outcome. That's way better than the opposite.
Well, and when you describe it like that, makes it sound extremely attainable. We know it is, but when you word it like that, someone might hear it and think, I can do like 1% better every day. If it's like that 1% every day, then you mentioned, what was it, 6 months with 20 minutes a day, like you will see a huge difference. It's a quote from The Slight Edge. You can't get to the top by taking shortcuts. You need to do the work every day consistently. But you mentioned simple earlier in the podcast as well. And it is simple.
That gets back to something I said earlier, which is like, you have to first acknowledge that you have the ability to change your habit.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people get stuck in that and don't think that they can, but the reality is, of course you can. You change your thoughts, you change your habits, you change your habits, you change your life. But you have to first believe you can change them. And then you have to believe that changing them at small scope will compound into great change and have great effect. And as long as you start with that central kind of core set of beliefs, it's limitless. Go ahead, Mike.
I agree. You're coming back around the beliefs and the thoughts and the things that make up our identity. Those are your thoughts and your actions, your emotions. Those things are all habits. And so what I had to do, fortunately for me, 3.5 years ago when I quit drinking, I went through 12-step program. Part of it's taking a moral inventory. And taking a moral inventory, honestly, which was really hard to do. So it's effectively journaling your thoughts, journaling your actions on a daily basis for a week and seeing what are the things about me that I don't like that I do consistently, habitually. Some of them you would say there's less habit involved, but ultimately these are things that they all started in my mind, but eventually became physical things that I didn't like about myself, actions that I was taking, words that I was speaking to people. They were all taking me away from what my goals in life were. And by no means have I replaced all of the bad in me, but I'm much farther along, especially as a result of you guys in my life. It's having a couple people that are really close to you that you trust well enough. And I certainly trust both you guys and everyone that I'm sharing this with to say it's not impossible for you to change your mindset, not impossible to change your thought you have habitually. I'm not saying you can completely cure all sorts of depression or anxiety, but you can do some serious damage against it and start to break down some of those types of habitual thought patterns that are taking you to a place that you don't want to go. And as soon as you can do that, as soon as you can change your mindset and start to replace some of those negative thoughts with positive thoughts about what you can do versus what you can't, about what you have going for you versus what life is throwing against you. You start to habitually think like that, and you're going to find that resistance you tear through. And it works in every area of your life. And I'm not going to say that I've achieved the end goal in any area of my life, but I've definitely been able to make substantial progress over the past few years as a result of habits.
Well, before Preston decided to impress us with rattling off 50 push-ups, I was talking about how you can't just wake up today and say, hey, I'm going to be an MMA champion and then just go fight in the ring tomorrow. However, if you want to be an MMA champion in your life, you have to be that person up here long before you ever have a shot at the title. So when it comes to changing identity, changing who you are, or achieving goals, the person I am today, right now, is not the person that's capable of the success that I want to achieve. Not yet. I still have more room to grow and learn. So I am not yet the person I need to be in order to accomplish the things I want to accomplish. Not all of them, some of them for sure, but not all of them. So the question then becomes, who do I have to become today to eventually achieve those goals?
Yeah.
Because I have to become, if I have goals that are greater than I am today, then I have to be greater than I am today to get there. And so when it comes to those thought patterns and those habits, if I were to, like, this is how I look at goal setting these days, or at least goal achieving and task setting, is if I were to sit down and I were to say, what are the habits? What are the daily disciplines and the routine of the version of me that's sitting on my front porch overlooking 1,000 acres? It's one of my dreams. It's one of my goals. What would that person's routine be? What would that person's habits be? And if I'm falling short of that right now and I don't make a change, I ain't ever going to accomplish that. So it becomes a bit of a North Star where it's not just about knowing that you want to change or need to change, but for me at least, it's become trying to put myself in the frame of mind or in the frame of reference of who I want to be and saying, what would that person do? And I'm sure I'll talk about this more. I'm sure we'll do an episode on identity where if you want to have a six-pack, if you get yourself into that identity, if you get yourself into that mindset of super shredded, mega fit, it actually becomes virtually impossible to reach for a half gallon of ice cream and mow it down. It's antithetical to that identity, to that belief system. And so similarly, the habits, the daily disciplines, the routines that we have, if they are not in alignment with who we want to be or what we want to accomplish, we're not going to get there. And so being able to be honest about that, to your point, Michael, to take moral inventory, to say, am I capable of becoming the person, or am I capable right now of accomplishing X? If the answer is no, it's who do I need to become to accomplish X? And how do I get there?
Yeah. And the slight edge, that's one of the things that stood out to me the most. He talks about this tension that exists between your dreams and where you are, and how with your choices, with your habits, these really small little things, you are either choosing to stay where you're at or to take a step toward your dreams. And you can't have both.
So Michael, to provide some context, I've read Atomic Habits. Michael has read The Slight Edge and then eventually read Atomic Habits. There's an interesting thing where we both have very similar perspectives, despite using different source materials to get there, which tells me either both of the authors of these books are idiots or there's some universal truths that they're sharing. But in Atomic Habits, James Clear says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Think about that for a second. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So when you reach for that extra bag of chips or that second soda, or you decide that you're not going to work out, you're making a vote for the type of person that you wish to become subconsciously. Of course, all of us want to be healthy, fit, strong, capable. On the flip side, if you wake up in the morning, you do your cold plunge, you do your journal, you read your book, you send your Marco Polo to your two best friends, wishing them well in the morning, encouraging them and supporting them. Every one of those is a vote for the person I want to become. And every action you take, think about that. This is why it's not big sweeping changes. It's just throughout the day, there are hundreds of potential opportunities, thousands, but let's not overwhelm anyone. Hundreds of potential opportunities for you to make a vote one way or another. And at the end of the day, those votes get tallied up and it's going to be 1% positive or 1% negative. It's astounding how small the changes are from the -1 to the +1. How little actions that you can take throughout your day, little votes that you can make, will sway that into the other direction.
I'm going to think about that. I'm going to hear your voice in my head when it's 10:30 and I'm getting gas and I'm thinking, oh, I would love a peanut butter cup right now. Because that's like, I get up early, I cold plunge, I do some reading, I polo you guys, but I have this weakness with candy. And I haven't had any this week, but I'm going to hear your voice. So all you out there that have a peanut butter cup addiction like me, or what's coming up is Easter, and me and cream eggs. Oh my God. That sounds horrible. Actually, now that I hear that out loud, mini eggs and cream eggs. They're like, have you ever had those? Oh,
Yeah.
I could go to town. Anyway, I'm going to hear your voice. Tell me, what was that quote you just said?
Every action you take is a vote, the type of person you wish to become.
I'm going to think to myself, I'm not going to take that vote today. I'm going to go vote with Scott and have some celery or something. I've actually been eating walnuts a lot lately. I'm on a walnut kick to avoid that, and they're quite good.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting how closely related habits and identity are. Like, I know we're going to dig a lot deeper into the subject of identity in future conversations, but I recall distinctly that we have anywhere from 12 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Just thousands of thoughts, of which the vast majority of them are negative, actually. And over 90%, and like 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. if 95% of our thoughts are habitual, repetitive thoughts, then we can start applying that 1% rule and start to take back 1% at a time, that 95% or whatever percentage of our thoughts that are negative, and start to replace them with positive thoughts and things about, like Scott was talking about, a compelling vision of the future that really drives us to make the right decisions. As soon as we start making the right decisions, we are going to have different experiences in life. And as soon as we're having different experiences in life, we're no longer in the autopilot of our bad habits, and our good habits start to serve us. And Preston, you talked just a brief snippet of your morning routine, which is reflective of all of our morning routines. But how long would you say those habits we've been working on? Like 2 months, 3 months
Yeah, I think it
at
was
this point?
middle of December we started doing that, I believe. I don't
But I
remember the
don't know.
exact
Yeah.
date.
So I don't know about you, but like I think about cold plunging as no longer really a choice for me anymore.
Yeah,
Whether or not I want to do it, it's not really a question in my head anymore. It's something
it,
that,
it's
yeah,
become like the
talk on that a
way,
little bit.
yeah, it's the more I've done it, it's no difference. One habit that I hope everybody listening to this has is that you brush your teeth first thing in the morning. And you don't think about doing that. You just do it, whether it's first thing when you wake up or like 10 minutes after. And cold plunging has become just as much of a habit as brushing my teeth, to where I still don't necessarily always, it's so weird. I do look forward to it, but I still somewhat dread it because it's very uncomfortable. But yeah, it's a non-negotiable for my daily routine now. And I don't know what I'm
Maybe
going to do
like,
when it gets warm here.
or maybe since we talked about the cold plunging in that last episode a little bit, how about journaling specifically? Because I know we've all been,
Okay.
I would say, varying levels of adoption with journaling. Maybe that's something we can talk a little bit about since we all.
I'm actually struggling with journaling. Journaling is, was it you, Scott, that challenged us to do that? Or maybe it was Michael, but
I hope
it
it
is
wasn't me.
definitely, you did challenge, because I have an entry in mine that says my buddy Scott challenged me to journal. But that's one that I struggle with. I'll go 2 days in a row, then I'll miss a day. I'll go on and off. I do enjoy it when I journal. It's just, and it's a habit that I've wanted to do. I've wanted to journal for years. Just, I always felt like internally it seemed like something that would be beneficial to me to do at night, or sometimes I do it in the morning, sometimes I do it at night. But that's one that I need to work on more. And like you said, 1% better every day. So I'm definitely going to journal tonight. But
No,
I
that's
do
just,
enjoy
that
it.
was a good example because the reality is for me, I've been great at doing this gratitude journal in the morning where I write down 3 things I'm thankful for. But then when it came to the end of the day, I haven't been as consistent about doing my end of day journal, but I borrowed from Warren Buffett these 3 questions, these 3 short questions that I try to answer after every day, which is, how did I surround myself by love? What was an amazing experience that I had? And what did I learn? And the days that I don't do this, they don't feel individually like a failure. And I don't feel like a failure when I don't journal. But I know that by doing this cumulatively, it will help me retain knowledge better. It'll help me retain some of the things that I've learned and the things that I think are important. But it'll also remind me, to your point, of the challenge that Scott had laid down back in the end of December, which is you need to journal about how you love yourself. Because I was struggling with, and I have always struggled with the past several years, with the sense of unworthiness and feeling like I didn't deserve success in life, or I didn't deserve the things that I had. And as a result of it, I haven't been, because of that mentality, I wasn't able to start experiencing growth in areas that I wanted to. And so journaling about it was one of those things that, even if I haven't been as consistent about it as I'd like, I know that that's a really important piece of changing my mindset about just loving myself and accepting that sometimes you don't feel surrounded by love by the work that you're doing in life, but you can look back at the things that you have done that day, those habits that you were successful at, the workout that you committed to doing that you did, the cold plunge, the spending habits financially, and look back at all these different things that you made the commitments to yourself to do. Scott talked a little bit about making promises to yourself. And you can say, no, but I love myself for having stayed committed to those types of things, and reminding yourself with a journal. Even if I sometimes fail at writing in my journal every day, it's when I get back to it, I see then this record of the times in life that I've surrounded myself by love, the cool experiences that I've had, and the things that I've learned. What a great way to end your day.
I've really struggled with the adoption of journaling, and I've tried to reflect on why. And I don't know that I have a great answer, other than it's something I've just never done and never really had a lot of interest in doing. But one thing you said there, Michael, that really jumped out at me, which is, so this morning I went and journaled, and it's been a little while for me, but I did this morning, and there was a certain level of comfort, like sinking back in. So what I do is I start with a little bit of gratitude for what I'm grateful for, but then I have a section or a little sentence about loving me, loving my wife, and loving my children. I have 3 different little sections. And I just flipped through some of the sections that I'd written in the past, primarily about my wife and my kids. And it was very pleasant. Like, it was very enjoyable to go back and not only relive those moments, but it was a moment of recognition that this is important. It's important that I give myself the time and space in what is a busy life to enjoy my family and be grateful for them. I don't know, maybe that'll be the thing the catalyst, yeah. Help people to understand the importance of not making sea change, but making small but consistent change in their life. And the 3 of us, I'll speak for all of us when I say that we have seen significant change over the course of the last several months, several years in some cases, by simply changing our habits, our routines, being more disciplined in how we move through life. And I would challenge anyone listening to reflect on your own habits and understand that it's your thoughts that trigger those habits. And that if there are actions that you're taking, habits that you have that you're not happy with, you have the power to change them. You have the ability to affect change, and you can literally start right now. Remember, there are thousands of moments. Michael said upwards of 50,000 thoughts a day that you have. Every single one of those is an opportunity for you to make a vote on yourself, to make a vote to be a better version of yourself. And it's not about significant change. It's really not. So many people get caught up in that. It's about knowing that going to the gym day after day will not produce a result in the first week. It's those consistent efforts. So I really encourage y'all to have a good thought about habits, about your identity. Maybe spend some time contemplating, what is the ideal version of yourself? And how would that person respond to situations you find yourself in? Or what would their habits look like? And begin to model yourself after them. And ultimately, just wanted to say thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of the Reclaiming Man podcast. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the socials at Reclaiming Man. As always, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to doing this again next week.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thanks, dudes.
Right.
Thanks, tribe.
Signing off, Trav.
Thanks, Trap.